Hi guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome to another episode of Food Exposed. In today's video we're talking about flour. Some of you might be already aware the process the flour goes through and the things that add on or take away from it, but to some of you it might come as a little bit of a surprise. Again, we're all aware there's tons and tons of the flours available on the supermarket shelves, and you might think, well, there's tons and tons of different companies that actually make this flour. But unfortunately, in UK, the flour industry is dominated predominantly by three very large corporations. And we also know, guys, that the bigger the company, the more they care about making money rather than the quality of the food. So to be fair, I was guilty, of buying a supermarket flour. As a prepper, I have flour in the back of my prepper pantry because, well, I do like to bake my own bread, so flour is really important. But I have been guilty buying a very basic supermarket flour, but this is only until, guys, I've done some research and actually understood the process and what effect it has on the quality of this flour. So hopefully, by the end of this video, you should be able to make a better choice when buying your flour. So let's dive into the information. So you'll probably be aware, that during the milling process, the flour gets stripped of all of its nutrients. So from 1941, there is now a law of UK, whoever produces the flour, to fortify the flour with extra vitamins. You might think, that's not a bad idea, but unfortunately the form those vitamins are added on, it's not as easily absorbed by our bodies. But the vitamins they're normally added on too, and you'll see them on the labels, they're clearly defined. You've got the calcium carbonate, which is the chalk powder, you've got iron, you've got the thiamine, which is the vitamin B1, and you've got the niacin, which is the vitamin B3. So the trouble is, again, you might think, well, not a big deal, but say calcium carbonate comes from the crushed limestone or synthetic sources. So unfortunately, if you do have a kidney stones or some sort of other kidneys issue, having an addition of the calcium is not going to be good for your body. And then we're talking about the iron, and this is a bit of a far-fetched one, you might think, but the iron sometimes added on in the shape of metallic powder. And you think, what the hell are you talking about? Well, yes, unfortunately it is the case. A few years back, I've seen a documentary when they looked at added iron when they were adding on to some breakfast cereals of the specific brand, and they done experiment and they used the magnet, and believe this or not, they pulled out some metal out of the cereal. So this was done on the big scale. It's not something you can probably practice at home, but it's actually happened. So unfortunately, so two things so far they're not particularly great. Yes, idea sounds good, fortified flour, but the way it's fortified is not good. So next thing, we're talking about the enzymes. So quite often enzymes are added to our flour, and guess what? They do not have to be added to the ingredients list because they're part of the milling process. So the hidden enzymes could be fungal amylase, I think I pronounced that correctly, so it breaks down the starch to speed up the fermentation. Xalanase improves elasticity, making dough easier to handle, and then you have lipase, mimic emulsifiers to improve texture. So because they're counting as milling or processing aids, those things don't have to be listed on your flour. So many people think they're actually allergic to gluten, or in fact gluten intolerant, but the fact is a lot of them could be actually intolerant to some of those enzymes. But how could you avoid consuming something if you're allergic to it or intolerant to it if you can't see this on the label? So next one on the list, and it's not a very pleasant one, we're talking about the insect fragments and mites. It is legally acceptable for the flour in UK to have proportion of mites and some parts of critters inside. This is nothing to do with the current legislation. This is just acceptable level without them deliberately adding stuff on to it. And believe this or not, they're allowed to have 75 parts of, critters in 50 grams of flour. 50 grams of flour, that's pretty little. 75 fragments, that's I think quite a lot. Beets are only really tiny, but the fact is, this is allowed standard. And the only reason they are having this standard because apparently it is not possible to physically eliminate those kind of things, because after they mill the flour it will sit there, and it's the way they store the flour, it's kind of a perfect breeding ground for these critters and especially rodents as well. So they have to afterwards, and this is the bad part as well, after they mill the flour, if it's sat there for a while, which it can sit for a couple of years before it even hits the shelves, they fumigate it before then packaging it and putting it on the shelves. So as soon as I read that, I'm like, the organic flour is the way forward. So next one, right, again, might be a little bit of a surprise, but most of the British flour is using the imported wheat. Again, some of you think, well, we have tons and tons of mills around the country. Well, in fact, we used to have over 100 and now we have approximately 50. Okay, and this is not enough. The demand is here, but they can't produce enough because the wheat we're producing is not of the food quality, not in all the instances. But nonetheless, okay, over 50% of the wheat used in UK flour milling is actually imported from different countries. So first of all is Canada, so Canadian wheat used for the bread flour. Then you got the one comes from France to use for the pastries, and then you have a Germany for the rye and specialty flours. And again, the misleading parts with the labels, like I've seen many, it says that, oh, milled in UK, milled in UK, milled in UK. And you assume, okay, well, it's milled in UK, it's a UK grain, but unfortunately, this is not. So any of those, and especially big corporations, okay, take the flour from different countries and then they mix it together. They take the grain from different countries, they mill it, they mix it, and then they package it up and they just put this as milled in UK, and you assume that the product is from UK, but in fact it is not. So if you do want to buy the true British flour, we have to buy from these small artisan millers, and I'll put some information down in the description. So next blow, right, we're talking about the, believe this or not, that the wholemeal supermarket flour, okay, may not be 100% wholemeal. Again, I'm like, sorry, really? Again, the misrepresentation. So apparently, some supermarket wholemeal flours are rolled milled white flour with added bran and jam, right? So they literally make it look wholemeal, but added on the parts to a white flour. How is this again allowed? I don't understand that, because it's, you know, if you call this wholemeal, it have to be wholemeal flour. And again, for us as a shopper, to make sure you get a true wholemeal, you have to try to find a stone ground flour. So next one, again, this was a little bit of a surprise, I must admit, but the white flour is actually chemically aged to improve baking without you knowing. So apparently, freshly milled flour doesn't have high gluten content. So the idea is it needs to sit there for a while to develop a little bit of the gluten. But as we know, guys, those companies are there to make money and they want to push this out as soon as possible. So rather than waiting naturally for the flour to mature, they actually use chemicals to age the flour. So in the UK, okay, they only allowed to use the oxygen treatment, okay, and the ascorbic acid, which is a vitamin C, so added as a dough improver. And then, guys, in America, they actually allowed to use the chlorine dioxide, which is being banned in the UK because it's not good for our health. And again, unfortunately, those things don't have to be mentioned on the label because they are part of the milling process. So again, if there's any effects on your health from any of the processes the flour is going to, you won't even know, so you can actually avoid it. Now we're coming back to the bread conditioners or the flour conditioners. In fact, just like bread as well, flours do have or can contain synthetic dough conditioners. First one, of course, we already talked about it with the bread, is L-cysteine, okay, which is the conditioner made from human hair, duck or chicken feathers, and pig bristles. They go through the process, okay, and they extract the amino acids and then add this to the flour to make it more palatable. And again, we're talking about the flours that are designed, okay, the specific brands that are designed to be the best flours to make specific loaves, because they're giving you extra additives to make your baking experience better. And the other things they're using is mono and deglycerates and SSL, which I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. So nonetheless, there's three things that are added on to the flour or could be potentially added onto flour and not being mentioned on the label. So there we are. Right, it is pretty unpleasant. To me, I think the pesticides or fumigation is probably done this, to be fair. And actually, I didn't mention as well, but don't forget, in some instances, they actually spray the grain before milling to make sure it doesn't go off and keep other bugs away. So we're potentially talking about 2 lots of different pesticides before milling and after milling, which is definitely going to be a no-go to me. So anyway, as we said, I have a small selection in front of me, okay, and again, the labels are pretty much very straightforward, and especially in the cheaper flours, okay, they generally tell you it's the wheat flour, you've got the wheat, calcium carbonate, iron, niacin and thymine. And this seemed to be a standard for the cheap bottom line supermarket flours. And then you're looking at the a slightly different brand or better brand, or shall I say the leading brand. And again, quite a lot of ingredients in there. Of course, they have usual additives, so you got calcium, iron, niacin, thiamine, that kind of thing. And also said, oh, look, may contain soya. So I'm like, okay, what on earth is soya got to do with my bread? So far as I'm aware, none of those additives or dough conditioners or enzymes nothing got anything to do with soya. But nonetheless, this one has that. And again, slightly different. This is a super strong bread flour. You've got, again, calcium carbonate, iron, niacin, thiamine. And then you've got some two things that can't even pronounce. Okay, and then also says, also may contain soya. And then, of course, guys, we do have a better or smaller brands, and they seem to be very much transparent. It tells you just exactly what it is and nothing else added on. So where we go from there then, right? So yes, as a prepper, I used to buy a cheap supermarket flour, but I'm certainly going to be changing that, and I'll have to be concentrating on buying a flour from a local mills. As I said, guys, there are approximately 50 mills left in this country. Okay, few of them do sell directly, so you have to Google online. Okay, have a look in your area and Google like organic mills or the ones that do the stone ground flour, because they're the only ones they actually truly will give you the best sort of flour. Many of them are very transparent, and they actually, as soon as you click on some websites, and again, I put some links down below for the good mills, they're very transparent, and they tell you we just ground it and we don't add anything, we don't take anything. A lot of it will have to be the whole meal to give you the best you know, flavors and vitamins and that kind of thing. But nonetheless, guys, this is our option. So anyway, as I said, I'll put some information down below for you to have a look. There's plenty to choose from. Yes, it is absolutely more expensive. It is 3 times, in some instances, 3 times the price for a decent flour, but at least we know we're getting something that what we're paying for, and it doesn't have anything that we don't want. So anyway, hopefully I haven't depressed you too much, okay? I think it's very important to know, and to be frank, I didn't want to do this video because, you know, as I said, I was guilty of just buying that without really looking at the details of that. But nonetheless, we're all human, we've got to start somewhere, so there we are. Anyway, if you have found this video helpful, please don't forget, thumbs up, subscribe if you're not a subscriber, and don't forget, check out my Food Exposed playlist for many more interesting videos. Well, and otherwise, guys, thank you for watching, and I shall see you in the next one. Bye bye.